Give me an update. What are you seeing? What are you not seeing? All that kind of stuff.
Well, we'll start with quarterback. I think I don't think we can even talk about who QB1 is. It's pretty clear that Graham Mertz has taken on a leadership role. He's taking most of those reps. He's performing the best. I think we're just waiting on Billy Napier to say it publicly and make it official. But I think Graham has kind of separated himself. And then I've been impressed a little bit with Max Brown. I think he looks a lot better this fall than he maybe even during the spring. He's a little more accurate, footwork's a little tighter, and in his athleticism, his running ability, I think gives you something different that the other two quarterbacks don't have. Not to say that they're Peyton Manning or they're a statue, but Max is just a better runner than they are. So I think maybe QB2 battle, but even watching practice Saturday, when we get to see everything more than just the 15 minutes that we typically get, there's a clear 1, 2, 3 with Mertz, Miller, and then Brown. And I just wonder if you try to get Max Brown because of that athleticism involved somehow. And I asked Billy that last week, and it did not sound like that was in the plans or in the cards yet. But I think we do have some clarification on the quarterback.
Yeah, I think that we kind of all expected when Graham Mertz came to Florida that he would be the starter. I think his expectation was to be the starter, and I think that it was going to take a lot to supplant him. Nick Silk, want to get your thoughts. Assuming that Graham Mertz is the starter, you have a backup between either Jack Miller or Max Brown. Jack Miller, obviously the more seasoned upperclassman, Max Brown, the redshirt freshman there. If they are even, do you guys have a preference over which one you would choose as a backup, assuming that they're even? And obviously also know that there's more to it than what we see. But my opinion, just throwing that out there, is if they're even, I put Max Brown. Biggest reason there is you have a longer runway with him. You have the opportunity to build and enhance his skill set as he grows in the program, and obviously has a longer window. But what are y'all's thoughts?
I don't know that they're even. I think I don't know what situation Max would come in. Maybe if Graham Mertz breaks his ankle in the first drive against Utah, I think you go to Jack Miller. If the offense is stalling at some point during the season in a game, maybe you have a package that involves some options, some other stuff that can utilize Max Brown's athleticism, and then he would come in spots. But I don't know that if you had to turn the offense over to one or the other, I don't know that Max Brown would be ahead of Miller right now.
I think I haven't seen any flashes from Jack Miller to make me think he should be QB2. I haven't seen a whole lot, but from the flashes I've seen of Max Brown, he looks like the better QB right now. Depends on who was at practice. A lot of people think that he has surpassed Jack Miller when it pertains to just overall quarterback play. I just haven't seen. We seen Jack play. I know he was missing some guys in the bowl game, but I didn't see any flashes in that game, regardless of losing and who wasn't there. I just didn't see any flashes in the spring game. Same thing. I didn't see anything that said he was even pressing Mertz for a real quarterback competition. I don't think he really applied any pressure. From the flashes I've seen, knowing Max Brown athleticism, some of the throws he's making that I've seen in these clips, I just think he's going to be QB2. We'll let Kemp continue to play out. Mm-hmm. I do like what Nick said if it's game one, it may be a lot of pressure and there's not a lot of experience from Max Brown with game time. So it'd be tough if Mertz was to go down in Utah, putting him on the field on the road. That's a different situation. But overall skill set and what I've seen in small clips and small sample size, I just think it's going to be Max Brown for QB2.
Obviously, we've talked a lot about leadership with Graham Mertz and everything else, but Nick, what you've seen, obviously a lot of those clips have also made it onto the internet now, so I think most fans have seen most of what you guys see. But what are you seeing out of him that has him so far ahead? Is it the crispness? Is it the understanding of the crispness of his passes? Is it the understanding of the offense and where players should be? Obviously, you're only catching maybe 5 to 8% of the practice. But what are you
Right.
hearing or seeing out of him?
Well, what we've heard is that he's become a leader, and the I was cynical. I'll say, when everyone was like, he's the first one in, and last one out, and I was like, yeah, he has to be. He spent 3 years in an offense. Now he's got only 2 years left to play. He's playing catch up in this new offense. Of course, he's the first one in, last one out. But that made an impression on guys. Made an impression on the staff. And Graham is, I think, the kind of guy that is going to do all the little things, even if that's like picking up somebody else's pads or picking up the locker room. No task is too big for him. I think he's just one of the guys, and that's helped him fit in. And I think the biggest thing with him is that as he gets more comfortable, the ball's coming out on time. The ball's going where it needs to. I think he processes information well. And listen, he's not going to be asked to be Kyle Trask in 2020. He's not going to be asked to be Danny Warfel. He's not going to throw the ball 40 times a game. This is an offense, I think, that's going to try to run the football, try to control the clock, and Graham just needs to keep defenses honest, hit those short passes, intermediate passes every once in a while when the defense starts creeping up, hit a play action, hit something down. I think right now, if that's what you're going to ask of him, manage the game, make the plays that you're supposed to make, dump the ball down when you need to. I think he's more than capable of doing that.
All right. All right. Let's see. Let's get into the first of the practices this week, and then ultimately we had an open scrimmage on Saturday. About 1,000 people. Yeah, open practice. Sorry, open practice. About 1,000 people. It looks like we're there. But Nick, walk us through a little bit of that open practice that we saw on Saturday. First time the Gators have done it, I think, in 8 years. Obviously, we will talk about Ricky Pearsall and Devin Moore, who missed that practice, and we'll talk a little bit about Shamar James here in a minute. But what do you think of the overall event and in the practice itself?
Yeah, it's interesting. A couple of the writers have been asking players and coaches, how different practices are now than they used to be. Like when Silk was playing, I'm sure there were 2 days, 3 days in the summer.
We did 3 days in JUCO, bro.
Yeah.
I think I'm liable to some type of compensation. I've been waiting for this whole, a big lawsuit to pop up, and I'm gonna join in, bro. But we did 3 days.
But that's not it now. There's hardly any tackling. There's no Oklahoma drills. I think the biggest thing to see was, okay, when Ricky Pearsall isn't there, who stands out? And to me, Caleb Douglas stood out. Trey Wilson stood out. I was encouraged to see Micah Mazuka playing contact, even in a non-contact jersey, going through reps. And then even more encouraging maybe is seeing Najee Harris being the guy that's taking first team reps when Mike is not in there. And I think that speaks volumes just to what he was able to do in the spring and the kind of player he is. So I think it's really hard to play as a freshman offensive lineman, but he's going to get the opportunity this year. So I don't know why. I saw a lot of hate or negative comments towards the offensive line. I don't think they were bad. But it's a football practice. They didn't really do, too much team stuff. There's no tackling. They'll scrimmage this week, I think Thursday. So we'll try to get some information out of that where they're actually, going game speed. But right now you're 5 practices in and still installing. I think some encouraging things, but it was just the 5th practice of fall camp.
So anything that you heard or saw or commentary on that, or your thoughts just on open practice as a whole?
I'm just liking the vibes from here. I've been saying this for a few months. I expect the defense to be good to elite. I just have high expectations for that front 7. Still some answers that I want to hear at the safety position, but I like what I heard I'm hearing from safety as well. But I like the overall, the energy from the offense. I like that, Mertz is looking like a leader. Shane Matthews, who's a former quarterback, he does content as well. And he was pretty spot on with the quarterbacks in the past, whether it was AR, Trask, or whoever it may be. He's been pretty spot on. So just paying attention to a lot of what he's saying He's high on Mertz. He thinks Mertz is more than capable and is going to have a good season. The run game is going to be official. I like the young boys stepping in. Pearsall was out. They say he was under the weather, but Andy Jean, Eugene Wilson, he's out of injury protocol and took off the non-contact jersey. But it's a lot of just explosiveness every time he touched the ball. So I'm excited. I spoke about Arlis Bordenham last show as well, and I think he's gonna have a breakout season. I've been seeing a lot of that, and that was before camp started. I just been seeing a lot of highlights, pictures, and flashes, and people singing his praise a little bit. So I'm higher up on the offense than I was before. I'm not terribly worried about the offensive line. Depth could be a issue, but if we stay healthy for the most part, like I don't have a whole lot of concerns right now with the offense. I do want to see us play competition that's not us, because there could be some familiarity, and them knowing our defense and being able to get some stuff off. But super excited about the secondary. The guys I've seen as far as DBs with the freshman Jordan Castell, Jakeem, all those guys are showing great footwork, great technique. A lot of, and even the energy from Austin Armstrong, seeing him at the open practice, him getting super excited and running out to the field. It's good energy. It's good camp energy. Haven't seen any camp fights or any disgruntled stuff. So just good positive energy, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
I think the offensive line might be a concern for me, just depth wise. Like I think right now I'd say like Barber, Mazuka, Ogwakin, Richie Leonard, Damian George, Najee Harris, Jake Slaughter, maybe Jordan Herman, maybe Riley Simons. I just don't know, like if you have any kind of injuries, I just don't know what the line looks like there. After that, and it's a team that you need that offensive line to be kind of the identity of your offense if you're going to be a running team.
Right. Let's get into a little bit more about some things that Billy Napier said. So we're just going to bounce around a little bit here. When it comes to QB2, Billy Napier mentioned on Thursday that Max has made improvement. I think he's a classic example of a really good athlete that just started playing quarterback a few years ago in high school. The guy can run. He's gained 8 or 9 pounds of lean muscle. There's no doubt his accuracy's improved. I think he's cleaned up his footwork, His stroke is much more consistent. And I think that there's some knowledge that contributes to that table in terms of understanding the system. So I think Max has come along pretty nicely. He's got to catch up mentally, but his work ethic this summer has impressed the staff and impressed the players. He's kind of got it right there in Graham's hip pocket, and he's played the way you'd want a quarterback to work. I know that we also mentioned Eugene Wilson. Silk, you mentioned was off of his non-contact jersey. He's obviously showing some excellent footwork in some of the routes that we've seen. And let's see, Montreal Johnson, Trevor Etienne, obviously have been nothing short of what we expected them to be. But also I know that Cam Carroll has impressed as well. And we're going to break down the running back room as well. So you mentioned Artis Borlingham. I know you mentioned Andy Jean as well. A lot of people that are excited about them. So from an offensive perspective, Nick, from what you've seen thus far, and they're playing against each other and they're just practicing, but are you more optimistic or just as optimistic, which was not much, based on what you've seen so far?
It's interesting because I think the best players on the team are like transfers or those young guys, and how do they react? What's their performance in week one when it's brand new and you're on the road and it's 8 p.m. prime time. I like Andy Jean. I like Eugene Wilson a lot. And the running backs, I think Cam Carroll is someone we don't talk about enough. I was talking ignorant. I was like, what is this dude doing coming here to come and run behind these two guys who almost ran for 1,000 yards each last year? And I think he came in with a purpose, and he's the best pass catcher, in my opinion, in the running back room. So I think he'll find the field. I'm a little more encouraged. I think Arlis Borlingham based on the reps, he's behind Xanders and Odom, but he just has a whole different game than anyone else that is going to play in that tight end room this year. And I think you have to figure out ways to get him on the field and get him the ball.
But that's kind of to be expected, Silk, and I want to get your thoughts there too. Arlis Borningham didn't play much. I think he's still considered a redshirt freshman, right? Yeah. So he had some injuries. A guy that Florida recruited, obviously late into Billy Napier, or late in that recruiting class, a guy that Billy Napier was able to convince to choose over. I know Oregon, I think South Carolina, Southern Cal was involved there too. Anyway, a guy that, fans seemingly were excited about, didn't know much about him last year. The Gators are trying to figure it out on offense. We don't see much out of the tight end position. But Xanders, who's been with the team since, I think he was in Spurrier's second or third class that he signed.
Him and Andre DeBose.
Yeah, him and Andre DeBose. And then you have Odom. Obviously, you have the injury to Zipper as well. And Borningham has, seemingly done really well. But it should be expected that a redshirt freshman that didn't play at all last year would probably be behind those guys. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily indicative of how little or anything he might play in the offense. Is that kind of a good way to break it down right now?
Yeah, you got to lose the job, And I think that's what happens during camp. So he'll work his way up the depth chart, and then the situational ball as well. I think when it's time to get the ball to the tight end, your number one choice is going to have to be Arlis Borningham. Even Tony Livingston. I want to see how he continues to mature this camp. But the guys that can go up and get the ball, separate, have a different type of twitch and athleticism, you got to get those guys the ball. He's like our Eugene Wilson at tight end. You just got to find a way to create mismatches. You're going to get safeties or a linebacker that it's going to be a problem for either one of those positions to try to cover a guy like that. But I expect him to ascend up the depth chart, and regardless of what they put, as starters when they put it out, we'll see what the snap count look like and what type of plays we run. But I expect him to get majority of the passing reps. I would say, I don't know if they want him in there doing a lot of the blocking if we're going to run heavy. But if it's in pass situation, goal line situation, you need mismatches. You got to use Arlis, man. He's just different.
Big, goes up and gets it. Can run with the ball after. I've been really, really impressed with him. Maybe it's a blocking thing, and maybe they just don't feel as comfortable with him blocking as they do Odom and Xanders. But like I said, he just brings something different that the other tight ends don't bring right now. And not saying that Tony Livingston can't be that or Hayden Hansen can't be that, but they're not there right now.
Yeah, I think those guys, you got to scheme open. I don't think they're just going to be man beaters, right? And they could just line up and beat somebody. So while they probably could block better, and I expect that because that's their strong suit. They're bigger tight ends. And I expect Arlis Borningham to become a better blocker as he stay in the weight room, get bigger. Next year, his sophomore year, it's going to be a little different all the way around for the whole tight end spot for him. But yeah, those guys you got to scheme open. And I don't know if we have a tight end scheme open offense, but if you just need a man beater, you got to get guys like Arlis on the field. It's going to be interesting. I did like some of even Caleb Douglas got to hold on to the ball a little bit. I want to see him sure up his hands, especially after that Florida State game last year. But I like what I saw out of the wide receiver spot, all the way around. I like the young boys that are pushing the depth chart and pushing for minutes. And I like some of the veteran guys that we got out there. But same thing, like some of the starters that's out there, like they on the clock. Like Frazier's, I like his skill set, but he's on the clock. These young boys is playing to take reps and take snaps. So he may start the Utah game, but if he's not making plays and he's not separating and making it easy for Mertz, you're going to have to put a guy like Mazzell, Andy Jean, Eugene Wilson, guys that can run routes, separate, and make the job a little bit easier for the quarterback. So it's going to start a certain way, and it's going to, a few games in, you're going to see the depth chart start to shift a little bit.
Yeah, to me, outside of or after Pearsall, Caleb Douglas has been the best receiver, in my opinion. I'd put him ahead of Jaquavion Frazier's already. And then I agree with you. Those young guys, especially as the game starts to slow down, they get more reps, they start to get more comfortable on the field. I think those guys, you'll start to see them get more playing time, get more run. Because I think Andy Jean. Who did I compare him to? I said like Antonio Callaway, Van Jefferson.
Nice.
Like he's polished.
Yeah.
He's just a polished route runner. Just a mature football player already.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way he attacks a lot of these guys. I'm gonna be real. I like the way they attacked the offseason this year as freshmen. They were dead ass serious as far as getting better and putting the work in. Even with Artis Boardingham, I wasn't just high on him because of his skill set, but I saw the work that a lot of these guys were putting in. It was serious work, and you start seeing their body change a lot. So, yeah, Andy Jean's an absolute professional when it becomes route running, working out, preparation, all of that's major. Callaway was a professional in certain aspects, but he was lacking some maturity in others. So Andy Jean just seems like he's well-rounded in all aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Silk, your thoughts? A little bit easier to see the field as a freshman at wide receiver than certainly some other positions, right?
Yeah, the further you're away from the ball, the easier it is as a freshman. So, like, just telling a guy to run a slant or this is your route in the huddle, you don't have to know the entire playbook. But being able to give guys like him who just super talented, you got to get on the field, coach them up in the huddle, let them know what they got to do if they don't grasp the playbook. 'Cause I don't know what his comprehension of the entire playbook is. But if he's struggling, you teach guys like that. Even Eugene Wilson, who didn't have a spring football, he's coming a little bit later than the other receivers like Mazzell and Gene. Man, you just tell that guy, hey, we're going to throw you a quick bubble screen over here, and you do what you do, bro. We're going to get out of your way. So you just got to teach those guys as you go, but you got to get the ball in their hands. And
I didn't see.
Seeing Eugene Wilson get a screen instead of Xavier Henderson, no slight to Xavier Henderson, my peoples, I rocks with the Hendersons, but it's a different type of screen you're throwing. It's a different type of bubble screen than a guy that's a lone strider that was a 400 runner, and you got a 100-meter runner that was one of the best in the state. It's a different vibe.
And then he came in and he was like squatting 400 plus, benching 300 plus. Just like, where did that come from?
Thank you, Nick.
I want to give a quick thank you to our friend Stone Cold Drip Sauce Tin. Again,
sounds like my closet.
Yeah. We appreciate the super chat donation. We are going over that projected win total for sure, which I believe is 5.5, depending on the sports book, 5.5, 6.5. But I agree. Florida does have a very tough schedule this year. But again, all signs are pointing to maybe this isn't the dire straits that some people on this podcast may have made it seem like in the spring.
Yeah, the schedule's never going to get easier, by the way.
Say what?
Talking greasy.
Dan was talking greasy earlier. Just
no.
Crazy negative.
All right, let's move over to the defensive side of the ball.